I recently had an article on Stronger by Science called "Do Oral Contraceptives Affect Your Gains?" And so it was looking at this question. It was nominally a review of a study by Oxfelt and colleagues called Molecular Markers of Skeletal Muscle Hypertrophy following 10 weeks of resistance training in oral contraceptive users and non-users. It was nominally a review of that study, but mostly I just wanted to just broadly review the literature, looking at the impact of hormonal contraceptives on strength and hypertrophy outcomes in female lifters. Because I think this is a topic where there at least seems to be a fair bit of misinformation and a fair bit of scaremongering.
And fake news.
Fake news, yeah. And I think I think a lot of it just kind of goes back to just some version of the naturalistic fallacy or an appeal to nature where, you just kind of assume that if you're putting synthetic hormones into your body, since that's not natural, something bad must happen. And maybe it's going to kill your gains, like whatever. I think that's kind of the kernel of the line of reasoning that leads a lot of influencers on social media to just flatly recommend that women in their audience not use hormonal contraceptives. They say it's going to make it harder to build muscle, attain positive training adaptations. And the thing is, that was maybe a tenable position 5 years ago, because there just wasn't that much research on it. With anything, it's not that hard to find negative anecdotes about virtually anything that someone could do. So there's not that much research. There's plenty of negative anecdotes, and you're like, well, okay, maybe this isn't a good idea. But within the last 5 years or so, there have been quite a few studies looking studying in a controlled way the impact of oral hormonal contraceptives on strength and hypertrophy outcomes. And they just find that it doesn't really seem to matter. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference. So at this point, there have been 10 papers published from 8 discrete studies comparing strength, lean mass, hypertrophy outcomes in users and non-users of oral contraceptives undergoing the same resistance training program. By and large, they find really no meaningful difference. And if you're the type of person who more enjoys a liberal interpretation of research results, where you're like, I don't care about statistical significance. I don't necessarily need to see a meta-analysis that confirms that within this body of literature, one thing or the other is better. If you're someone who more just, wants to look and see where the wind is blowing, is this inconclusive body of literature leaning in one direction or the other? If at this point it is leaning in one direction or the other, it's actually leaning in the direction of oral contraceptives maybe improving hypertrophy outcomes. I'm not making that as a strong claim, they will definitely help you build more muscle. I personally think it doesn't make any material difference. But if the literature is leaning one way or the other, that seems to be the way that it's leaning right now. And like I said, at this point, it's not just based on just one isolated study or one or two papers. There's 10 papers in this area, which, as with most things in our field, I would love to see a larger body of research on this. 30 papers are better than 10. But 10 is a lot better than for a lot of questions in our area. And they're painting, this body of literature is painting a pretty cohesive picture. You can look at the results of these studies. There's a table linked in the Stronger by Science article that you can check out. Let's see, it is table 5 in the article that just breaks down all of the results of these studies. And if oral contraceptives do negatively impact your gains, it has not been observed in the literature to this point. I don't really feel like I need to go super in depth about the Oxfeld paper in particular. But I did just want to note that, if someone does want to claim that oral contraceptives negatively affect strength and hypertrophy outcomes, just know that whatever they're using to make that claim isn't based on actual longitudinal human evidence, because the longitudinal human evidence does not support fear and trepidation around oral contraceptives negatively affecting hypertrophy or strength outcomes.